Welcome to Bench to Bedside, a weekly series of live conversations about recent advances in cancer, from the research bench to treatment at the patient's bedside. And now, your host and the director of the University of Kansas Cancer Center, Dr. Roy Jensen.
We are here today for the purpose of signing the Cancer Act of 1971.
On December 23, 1971, President Nixon signed the National Cancer Act into law. This landmark legislation set a critical course, bringing together patients, doctors, and researchers to launch a coordinated effort to address a disease that affects all of us. The act elevated the role of the National Cancer Institute and established its NCI Designated Cancer Centers program. Today, there are 71 NCI Designated Cancer Centers in the U.S., and the University of Kansas Cancer Center is one of them. The Cancer Centers program is one of the anchors of the nation's cancer research effort, a major driver behind advances in research and patient care. We have come a long way since the National Cancer Act was signed 50 years ago. Still, about 600,000 people will die of cancer this year in the U.S. There is more to do. Good morning. I'm Dr. Roy Jensen, Director of the University of Kansas Cancer Center. With me this morning is Dr. Weijing Sun, the Cancer Center's Director of Medical Oncology and Associate Director for Clinical Research. Welcome, Dr. Sun. And joining us via Skype is Megan Peters, and she is here to take your questions. So to start off with, the National Cancer Act was really a pivotal moment in the field of oncology. In your opinion, what were some of the most significant things to come out of the passage of that act?
Yeah, so this action is also called the War on the Cancer, so which is a tremendous important, for the not just for this country, influence for the whole global, which is the revolution way to organize the infrastructure to combine the science and the clinical practice and the society prevention and combine everything together to fighting this cancer, which is the most important part is science and the basic science and the clinic are organically combined together in the infrastructure way and the privilege for the all science to the cancer, fighting cancer, that's important. And also for the resource together, for the privilege of the funding, which is most important to invest to this world for ourselves fighting cancer.
Mm-hmm. So how has the knowledge of cancer evolved since you first started practicing medicine? How have things changed?
Yeah, it's interesting because I started my career at middle of 90s and of training to the one track of the oncology because this is so threatened to our human as a whole. However, even with starting the fighting in the 1930s, developed some drugs the way, but it's not organized and the drug is not available. For example, we only have a few drugs available. By 1990s, even previously 56 years, we're trying to develop in that way because we're all sketched at different places. And basic science, drug development versus practice are not connected the way we're supposed to do. So, for example, for treating colon cancer or gastric cancer, we only have one drug. It's popular called 5-FU. And then we have some other drugs totally for the leukemia, for those. It's interesting. But then we consider a lot of the older medication is the name, a same category of antibiotics, like some like adriamycin. Mm-hmm. It's like a mycin is kind of, so that's why for past 20, 30 years is a dramatic change, because we benefited from this 1971, this action. So from science, we know the patient, the screening, prevention, and the treatment and drug development. We can tell, just for example, the area I know the most of GI cancers, the colon cancer, why I started practice. So metastatic colon cancer, average living for 5 to 6 years. Mm. Now we see many people living 5, 6, 10 years, so which is really contributed by and influenced by this action, and we work together. And drug-wise, now we have how many? We have thousands of medication to treating cancer.
So you're a physician scientist, which means that you not only practice medicine, but you also conduct research. Could you tell us about your research efforts and really how they contribute to the collective knowledge of treating, in your case, GI cancers?
Yeah, so the question is, traditionally, we're thinking of a cancer is just a kill the cancer. Traditional medication called a cytotoxic. It means you kill the cancer cells, which is a traditional medication, still useful, but that's kind of that's why a lot of chemotherapy has toxicity. And like one drug treat all, which means you treating everybody have a similar cancer, use an anatomic location as the same. But we do know, the cancer are so diverse, or your professional word called heterogeneity, which means that every cancer patient or majority patient cancer, they don't have the similar biology. So my kind of focus research is drug development, so which means from the new scientific development from the bench, basic science, translated to the new drug development and user clinic for patient. On the other hand, is safety for patient, safety for drug development is important as well. So that's kind of my focus area. But now today, we see a lot of medication we call the target-oriented treatment, which means target the growth factors and those signals, how to make the cancer move, development, what's the difference between normal cells and the cancer cells difference. And then the other thing is immunotreatment. We can see a lot of things today because our body is very smart to fighting with cancer, anything different. But on the other hand, our immune system trying to balance, not overreacting. So that's kind of thing we're developing today. So we have so many target-oriented treatment today and the immunotherapy today, which is minimum toxicity, but extremely beneficial for patient. For example, for liver cancer today, we used to be this is chemotherapy refractory, means chemotherapy doesn't work for those disease. And so today, we have immunotherapy with those anti-angiogenic, which means anti-blood vessel medication. Patient tremendous improving in past that drug, that concept just developed probably 2 or 3 years ago. And now we can see so many people are benefits from it.
So if you're just joining us, we're here with Dr. Weijing Sun talking about strides made in cancer research and treatment over the last 50 years. And Megan Peters, who is joining us via Skype, can take your question. And remember to share this link with people you think might benefit from our discussion. Use the hashtag #BenchToBedside. And Megan, I understand that we have our first question already.
We do. This question is for Dr. Sun. What do you see as the 3 biggest innovations in cancer treatment over the past 50 years, and what are you the most excited about?
Yeah, so number one is prevention is important because we understand that the biology of a tumor much better. For example, for colon cancer, you have a Lynch syndrome, because Dr. Lynch, in 1980s developed, his system consider we have a patient, young, especially younger patient, develop cancer, and some go with the family. So, and today we know there are genetic directly related. If we do colonoscopy earlier, so we can save many people's life, because because the cancer developing by stage, so it takes called phases, takes some time, average about 10 to 20, 30 years from a benign to the malignant. If we block those processing, that's very important. That's why the number one, which is like mammogram and colonoscopy, we can prevent a treatable cancer at an early phase. Second is the drug development. It's very, very important today because, just as I said, all the time we have a cytotoxic medication. Cyto means cells, toxic means the toxic. We kill the cells, which means a lot of patients have a toxicity, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, losing hair, and the patient quality of life is tremendous involved, and sometimes work the very short period of time. Today, We have a target-oriented treatment with genetic analysis, attached, integrated with the treatment plan. We know which mutation, we know what to target those mutation change. We can even follow when the cancer fighting back, develop a new mutation. We can chasing that new mutation and give a new treatment. And then the other way, the best way is immunotherapy, let our own body, the immune system fighting with the cancer. That's another important part. So the third part is our society and our patient advocate, education for our own, which is most important because it's no longer physician treating cancer, is a whole society, patient and the physician research working together to understand those education. Nothing can replace that part.
It really has come a long, long way. It looks like we have another question, Megan.
We do. The question is, what treatments are there for esophageal cancer?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And the question is the esophageal cancer is a geographic location for the tumor developed or cancer developed. But on the other hand, it's very important to understand the biology of the tumor. Just for a simple example, for squamous cell carcinoma, which is directly related to more smoking, alcohol, or adenocarcinoma, which could be related to some of a behavior, some the evolution of the environmental related. So that's why we understand they're different. And we have all developed a different target treated. For example, there is a HER2, traditionally we think about is related to breast cancer, but we find 20% of people esophageal cancer carry these markers. So we can use the anti-HER2 treatment to treating this disease. The other part is we know there are genetic mutation developed with this disease, as I mentioned before, such as called MSI, microsatellite instability, which means the cells correcting system, our own body correcting the mutation system, got a kind of error over there. We can correct that. They responded to the immunotherapy much better than the other group. And the third part is we are acting earlier. Before, we consider give a surgery, and then chemotherapy afterward. But then we're facing some patient called recurrent disease. Nowadays, what we do is we give a chemo radiation upfront to minimize the patient. We can follow chasing the tumor's biology, make it minimize the tumor, and the surgery still are very important. And the chemo radiation afterward is also important, but we understand because we have chemotherapy or radiation up front, we chase the tumor responding before we go to surgery. And the surgery trauma is much smaller, and we know which patient is doing better than the other, or which patient can be altered or tailoring the disease biology treat them. So which means we are treating every individual patient or group at least differently. We medical term call patient selection for their best treatment. Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that one of the advances that you talked about over the last 50 years is prevention, and it's a good opportunity to highlight the fact that someone who was really at the forefront of esophageal cancer prevention, which is Pratik Sharma on our faculty, is really one of the world's experts in Barrett's esophagitis, which of course is a risk factor for esophageal cancer, and it's just one example of the very strong prevention program that we have. So in terms of how do NCI designated cancer centers like the KU Cancer Center support the growth and development of research programs and the advancement of new therapeutic approaches?
Yeah, I'm so proud of the working, at the the NCI Designated Cancer Center, like a KU Cancer Center. It's just a privilege to working on this cancer center because, which is the best organized way to have research and the translational, basic science research from bench directly to the translational research and quickly to the clinical trial, develop it in organized way. And that's the best way. And we have called an early phase drug development, which means with the shortest time, and connect those newest scientific finding through this and benefit the patient, which is not like all the time you consider take a long time, develop a drug and you find a resource and you find a connection. And then this is a whole organized from upfront, and everybody communication working together and back and forth. We not even we can go is from clinical trial information we collect from patient, feeding back to clinical research to find the mechanism we can alternating what's the best way, because all the time is just one way. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, we are in the local area for example, each state have a diverse different population needs, and we can focus a local area for our best treatment for. We use the word called catchment area, means this area, what's their specific, tailoring the local needs as well.
Mm-hmm. So when the National Cancer Act was passed in 1971, the 5-year survival for all cancers was 49%. And now it's just under 70%. So we've come a long, long way. But clearly we have a long way still to go. When you look at the future of cancer research and treatment, what would you say you're most excited about in terms of where we're going to be 5, 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah, so on the one hand, the evolution is continuous. Some we can predict, some are beyond our prediction. For example, the AI, this technology and the big data, how we use this information, because I think it's so exciting in the future. However, on the other hand, we know one thing is, the AI, those can be used because precisely way better than our eyes, our hands to catch up. So which can be integrated and a narrow technology to guiding us, use our intelligence, but use these tools guiding us, much faster and much intelligent, much precise to guiding the details treatment. And the big data is very important because we all know, medicine is a practice medicine. We still use the word practice medicine. Mm-hmm. To a certain level. There's some anecdotal, so for the physician practitioner, with the big data supporting is guiding us, help us minimize those kind of anecdotal, personal experience, which is still important, but we have a better instrument of guiding that. So technology and the big data, that's the most important. On the other hand, our understanding. For example, the immunotherapy 10 years ago, we talked about it, but we never expected so fast develop today is every disease, and we use the really amazing immunotherapy to get the best treatment and minimize the toxicity. So to me, in the future, I think we need something terminology we'll probably hear more is like stem cell. Mm-hmm. So there's the original cells, how the cell develop a different way to this. I think that's another area we probably need to pay more attention to look at and focus on it.
Okay. And now, when you talk about AI, you're talking about artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
right?
IA, sure.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
IA,
Okay.
intelligent.
Yeah,
So.
very good. Megan, it looks like we have another question.
Yes, we have a few more questions. The first one is, what treatments are there for brain cancer? What is the outlook for recovery?
Yeah, brain cancer is, we probably have a lot of, watching some TV, there's some development, but on the brain is a major issue is the cancer versus the function of a brain. And that it's always challenging because the brain is such a small area, such an important area. But on the other hand, anatomy-wise, any cancer can be growing into the function, and the surgery could be trouble. To cause a lot of consequence, like disability for the patient. Even that's why I limited the neurosurgery to do the work. I think the most important is we're already developing area. I think the immunotherapy is dramatic things we can see the difference. The second is targeted treatment because there are relatively benign the brain tumor, very aggressive tumor, so their biological behavior is a key part, so that's why we're looking in the target, so the single target can driven the cells from wide relatively benign or why go to relative aggressive tumor. So those are the key part. And the other part is, that's I mentioned, the stem cells. So that's why we need to understand from a beginning, why those cells develop into the different way. Hopefully, we can prevent or at least to not use aggressive treatment like today we have to use surgery because of recutting. And also, the IA can help us to, even do the surgery for the human scales can have limits. So that's why I think the brain tumor in the future will be focused on a lot of things. We already see, but some of us still in the translational level, target-oriented treatment, immunotherapy. But the one thing right now we can see in the next 1 or 2 years, the immunotherapy in the in the brain tumor will have some revolution change, including the stem cells related technology.
Yes, and we're really delighted to have David Akavan at our place, working on CAR T therapy for brain tumors, and it's certainly been a disease that has been an extraordinarily tough nut to crack for many years. But we talked about lung cancer in the past, and 10 years ago, lung cancer was kind of in the same place. It's like we'd been working for years and years and years, and basically made very little progress. And now look how far we've come in the last 10 years. It's really astounding. We just need that one breakthrough there.
Yeah, I agree, because CAR T belong to the big immunotherapy, which means CAR T or vaccine is also a tumor-specific oriented vaccine. Also could be developing in the brain tumor, that area, developing as going to let the body to fighting instead of mechanically outside we fighting, so let the human body to fighting with the tumor probably is the best way. And yeah, I agree. The lung cancer before, even 10, 15 years ago, we're joking to the way, say, hey, we treat everybody same, But today, every 5% of lung cancer are different disease, use a different way to treat it, which is amazing.
Yep. Any additional questions, Megan?
Yes, we have a few more. The first one is, what treatments for melanoma and how effective are they at stage 4?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a very, very good question because melanoma has unique behavior because the prevention is the most important. And on the other hand, because of prevention, 85 to 90% of today melanoma are early melanoma, stage 1, 2, instead of 20 years ago, we see majority are stage 3 or 4. But still have a stage 4 disease. On the other hand, the immunotherapy is revolutionized the treatment of the melanoma. So today, the melanoma is, to a certain level, is kind of chronic disease. We're treating like diabetes now. So there's so many weapons, so many treatment. For example, the target-oriented treatment for BRAF V16E is a kind of a revolution treatment, and we're no longer using any traditional chemotherapy for this disease. Almost we never use any traditional chemotherapy for this disease. So target-oriented treatment, immunotherapy is the treatment way for this disease. And the stage 4 disease from melanoma from 20 years ago, average survival 6 to 9 months. Now, people living for a long time with a normal, more important, not just surviving, with a normal quality of life and the style.
Next question, Megan.
Yes, a viewer says, I have Barrett's. I am not a drinker, but I have suffered from heartburn since my 20s. Are there any treatments for Barrett?
Yeah, it's very interesting because the Barrett's esophagus is challenging for a lot of people. Because, on the one hand, we only know there's some information could be behavior related or microenvironment related, but it's not we can easily catch which one. So obesity and we're sitting too long on the computer because that could be really reflex symptoms, and those are traditional the kind of course etiology we find. But the challenging part is when this Barrett's esophagus itself is called a precancer, when they changing to be aggressive behavior, that's the challenge. We'll focus on that, because some people can be lifelong time. Barrett's never getting to be cancer. Some people after 10, 15 years. So that's going to keep key challenge we have right now. So we do have this, like a Dr. Sharma kind of doing this kind of research. On the other hand, is to the certain level is preventable, but we need a continuous surveillance and to looking the behavior change when the signal starting changing. So that's the challenge, but because it's not like someone like breast cancer, we can do minimum, lumpectomy, small surgery. Esophageal cancer, if we do the big surgery, which is a quality of life change dramatically. So that's why we use the word risk versus benefit ratio. So this is, I think, right now. So, I encourage people included a clinical trial prevention because we can understand the disease better, multiple biopsy to looking into the course, understand this disease better. On the other hand, to the certain level, take advantage because we can repeat, do the esophageal, EGD, endoscopy, to monitoring the processing of this disease, just like we do the mammogram colonoscopy. And that's probably the best way. Do not let your situation run into kind of aggressive or before getting into aggressive tumor type.
We certainly want to encourage people to be monitored by their gastroenterologist for that condition. Additional questions, Megan?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well, Dr. Sun, thank you so much
Thank you.
for being part of this week's episode of Bench to Bedside. That's it for today. Please join us next week at 10 a.m. for Bench to Bedside. Thanks for watching.